like the beauty is in the journey. And I didn't always realize that. But looking back and seeing the lessons that I learned from each of those chapters has been game changing. And you can't pay for that. Can't pay for that at a university or a master's degree or anything else. Like that comes from being out there and implementing and practicing what we preach and being like, shit, that did not work. Don't ever do that again. Right. And changing and doing that. So I've been blessed, man. I really have. And I've learned some beautiful lessons along the way.
Welcome to the LandLife Podcast with your host, PJ Reilly.
What's going on, guys? This is the LandLife Podcast. My name is PJ Reilly. Guys, if you're getting value, if you're learning a lot from this podcast, make sure you leave a like, a follow, write a couple comments. Talk about my background, if you like it, if you don't like it. If you like me, you don't like me, you got some things I need to fix. This guy, Larry White Jr. has got a really cool background. It's like, oh my gosh, look at that. That looks so awesome.
Straight from Wall Street, brother.
That is awesome. So guys, if you like all this stuff, let me know. If you don't like it, let me know that too. At the end of the podcast, Larry White Jr. is going to give you a way that you can contact him if what he says resonates with you. If you want to keep that conversation going and keep that relationship going, he'll let you know how to get hold of him. But today, guys, we got Larry White Jr. Check this out. He is the self-proclaimed catalyst and creator of opportunities. Now that's pretty cool. That's not just
funny. Before we got on, right, you were talking about Zoom and how you've never heard Zoom before. Well, when they wanted me to come build their network out and start training some of their agents, I essentially made a wish list, right? And one of the, I didn't want to be an AVP or an RVP or a VP anymore. And so I was like, I want to create my own title. And I don't think they were like, oh, well, we don't give a shit about that. You can do whatever you want. I was like, oh, what do I want to be when I grow up? Right. And it took me like 2 weeks. And then they were like, you're not going to really put that on your business card. I was like, hell yes, I am. I'm going to own this wherever I go from this point forward.
That is so cool. What a cool title too. Like, guys, that's a good little tip there too. When you're going to get a new job, tell them you want to create your job title. And
yes.
You could too. You too could be the self-proclaimed catalyst and creator of opportunities at your place. All right, Larry. First of all, what part of the country are you in?
Today I'm in Houston. I was just in Vegas last week. I'll be in Southern California the rest of this week, but right now I'm in Houston, and that's where I call home.
Okay, super nice city, by the way. That's a really nice place. Huge though. The traffic is crazy out there.
Yes, which is why I don't like to drive. So
I can imagine. All right, Larry. So let's go back a little bit. We want to tell your story. We want to get people up to speed on who you are. Let's go back, kind of give us the background on how you got to the point where you're at right now.
Beautiful. Well, man, it's been, I have a hard time thinking, right? Because I've been going in real estate 17 years. I don't feel like I'm old enough to have been in a career that long, right? I still think I'm young and dumb and still do totally stupid things.
Yeah.
But graduated from Arizona State University, right? And came out of there. That's where I met my bride, had a lot of fun. I was an executive for Target straight out of college. On the fast track to have my own store at like the age of 25, which would have been like 125 to 200,000, which was more money than I could have ever imagined at that point. And I realized that I was working nonstop. Like it was retail. Like weekends, that's when you had to work. Holidays, I was a Scrooge. I was like, hated Christmas, hated Easter, right? Like hated everything. I was like a Scrooge. It was terrible. And so one of my best friends, and my dad is also a police officer in the Phoenix Police Department, was like, bro, what if we join the police academy? They have 4 10-hour shifts. I was like, 3 days off a week? Yes, let's go. Right?
Yeah.
But I didn't even know what they made, right? I took a huge pay cut. And that's actually what got me into real estate. During that time, this was like probably 04 to 06. So I started investing. I started doing double escrows, which they call wholesaling and stuff now. I got my license because I thought it would help me. I didn't know that it would just open me up to a tremendous amount of liability. Otherwise, I may not have done it at that point. But as I got my license and people in the department saw what I was doing, others started asking me like, hey, can you help us? Can you do this? And so I was making more working 5 or 10 hours a week in real estate than I was full time. And I was like, it was so much fun too. Like my best friend I wrestled through high school and college with was my beat partner. It was like Bad Boys. I remember like we weren't afraid, like we were both big into fitness. Like we weren't afraid somebody was going to outrun us, but we'd be like talking shit, be like, hey, that kid, unhitch the wagon, like catch up. He's going to get away if we go at this speed, right? And so we had a lot of fun, but I just had to kind of think about what did my future hold. And so I remember like when I burned my ship, my dad was like, I was like, look, Dad, I'm not, that was safe. That was secure. And that's what my parents worried about. We're like, what happens if you don't sell a home? And I was like, I don't have a choice. And I really didn't know I didn't have a choice because I took my pension, which was like $25,000, $26,000 at that time that I had built up. I thought I was investing it. I actually put it into a Ponzi scheme and have still not seen a dollar. So literally I burned my ship, everything in my ship. And I was like, well, I'm either dying here or taking over this island. Those are the two options. But it forced me to hustle, right? Like I did all of the things that nobody else wanted to. I became really proficient with scripts. I would cold call for 3 hours a day. Not that I liked it. It was out of necessity. And I don't think that most people are faced with that challenge. People want to do a lot of production. They want to buy these things. They want to invest. They don't necessarily want to do what it takes to get there. They see the tip of the iceberg and they don't see all of the foundational pieces that went into that.
Yeah.
And after that, man, I just kind of never looked back. I think by my third year, I was doing 20, 25 deals a year, jumped up to 60. And then I found like I was just coming into roadblocks because I had no more time. So that's when I built a team. We did 300 and something transactions. And even with a team, I was running out of time again. And so that's when I got recruited to build some companies, right? I built a company that was owned by auction.com in Arizona, and then got recruited to Carrington Real Estate Services that owned their own mortgage company. We took that from 286 agents to almost 3,000 agents. And I became like their head of business development. And along this way, like I always made really good money. But I think the problem is like when you make really good money, you spend really good money as well. Right. And so I realized I was really helping everybody else create a lot of wealth. And again, I don't feel bad for myself. I wasn't doing poorly, but like I was doing this for a 3% commission or less sometimes, and they were making these spreads. And so that got me into actually investing for myself. And that's kind of my goal these days, right? To where I'm at now. I mean, I want to help agents increase production, decrease costs, build wealth, use all of the lessons that I've learned. I have massive referral networks and stuff because I feel like once you create that financial security, then you can work on yourself, right? Then you can work on, like, if I was like, PJ, like, let's meditate for 10 minutes and you don't have the money to turn on your electricity, the last thing that you want to do is sit down and be quiet for 10 minutes.
Yes.
Right. And so it's been a beautiful evolution. Like I didn't always realize like the beauty is in the journey. And I didn't always realize that. But looking back and seeing the lessons that I learned from each of those chapters has been game changing. And you can't pay for that. Can't pay for that at a university or a master's degree or anything else. Like that comes from being out there and implementing and practicing what we preach and being like, shit, that did not work. Don't ever do that again. Right. And changing and doing that. So I've been blessed, man. I really have. And I've learned some beautiful lessons along the way.
So there's a lot of things I want to unpack with all that big story. There's a lot of cool things there. I mean, going from a police target to a police officer to jumping into real estate, those are big changes, right? Yeah. There's not a lot of people who do that. Right. And it's not a common thing to be able to transfer from transition from one position to the next. How are you able to transition? I think that's a huge issue with people. I mean, especially in a world like the police department, for example.
Mhm.
How many cops do you know right now that could go start a business in a month, right? It's just not a thing talked about a lot. So how were you able to transition, whereas a lot of people can't do that?
Well, so here's the thing. I think there's probably more than I think the key point is it's not talked about.
Yes.
I think a lot of police officers, firefighters, EMT have side hustles,
Yeah.
part-time jobs that pay double what they make on the streets. I knew a number of first responders and stuff that were also great handymen and stuff. So they did contracting on the side in order to create those different opportunities. Again, this is going back to that same issue. When you make more, you generally spend more.
Yeah.
If you took that side hustle and invested it, right, and made that money work for you, put it into some speculative assets, not all of it, maybe it's 10%. Like those little disciplines could really change your life.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's not there, but since that money's not changing their life, right? Because it's just side hustle and it's spent on a lot of material things, I think a lot of people are scared to go all in.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, it could work, but if you don't commit fully, then you can never fail. And I think that's what we're scared of, right? It's like we're scared of that failure. And so I think this is what stops a lot of people from getting over that edge. Because if you don't, oh, yeah, I did that a little bit on the side and I could have done it, if I would have applied myself, but, I had this and that, right? Like we all make up these own stories. And so that commitment, like I burned my ship, totally burned my ship. And then I burned somebody else's ship when my money was taken in a Ponzi scheme. And so like all of these different things, it wasn't easy, but it's all been sort of an adrenaline rush, right? Like from like the police officer, like the biggest adrenaline jump, like drop that I've ever had in my life, right? Like just some huge thing. And same thing and then it was selling real estate, right? And as the transactions went higher in value, like making $20,000-$30,000 in one transaction, and then doing that a couple of times in a month was like, oh wow, right? Like that was a rush. And now like these investment deals, right? So I think we're always naturally trying to grow. I hope we're all naturally trying to grow. Those are the people that I tend to surround myself with, because I do think you're a reflection of the people that you hang out with the most, which is I like to hang out with cool people. I want people to push me, be at the top of the bucket, pulling me out, not the crabs in the bucket being like, well, you can't do that. Fuck you. You can't do that. Right? Like, don't put your limiting beliefs in on me. Like, let me figure out if I want to do it. And if I want to do it, then I'll go all in. So it has been an interesting journey. And I think people don't give themselves enough credit. Yeah. And it gets scary in that place. And I see this a lot with realtors as well. They come in, they see what's possible, but they don't build a business, right? And it's not easy. Like, Larry, like I have no sales. Well, how many people have you talked to today? Well, I haven't. Well, there's your answer.
Right.
Nobody's going to buy a house from you if you don't add value and you don't reach out to people every single day.
Yeah, I think fear is the key word too. Fear of the unknown too. So, we can use the law enforcement example as a guy who's got a great side hustle, right? He's a guy who owns, let's say he owns a self-storage facility or something. Yeah. He sees the cash coming in. It's nice. It's great actually. But he could never see himself moving into something else because he would lose that safety, that stability, that friend group, what do you tell your wife? Right. I'm quitting this stable life that's been paying our mortgage, our kids' soccer. It pays for that. I get my insurance through there. You really think it's really tough to tell my wife that I'm just going to go and give this thing a shot, right? I think a lot of it has to do too with just not understanding what to do, right? They've figured out I put my hours into this self-storage facility and it makes X dollars. But if I'm going to buy two, I'm going to have to put my hours into 2 facilities, right? They're so focused on being in the business and not on the business, right? If you were to come to somebody, you were to talk to somebody like that, how would you guide this person? What moves would you have this guy make?
So one of the key things that I picked up on what you said, right? What are you going to tell your wife? The only reason I'm where I'm at is because of my bride. So, like, you could have all of the aspirations in the world to grow, to build a multi-billion-dollar business. If your significant other is on a different path, it's not going to work. It's going to cause tension on your relationships, etc. Like my wife has called me out a few times. She's like, "Why are you playing so small?" And I've had to come back and tell her, well, because this was when she was a stay-at-home. She was staying at home with the kids. She was homeschooling them. We went to some mastermind events. She heard some people talking on stage, and she's like, "What are you doing?" She was like, "You could run circles around them." And I had to realize that I was just trying to put food on the table, make sure the bills were paid. And so again, you got working in your business and not on your business.
Yeah.
And so we had to come together, and she was like, she's like, "Larry, can you fucking do this?" And I was like, "I got this." And she's like, "Okay, I'm getting my license again. I will make sure the bills are paid. Run." And that, and again, and we've done, it's not me being like, "Babe, I have this huge opportunity to move to Las Vegas." I never wanted to live in Vegas. Like, I can't spend more than 2 days in Vegas. Like, no, I don't want to live in Vegas. Like, same thing, "Babe, I think we got to move to Houston," right? And we kind of lay it out. But she's my ride or die, man. Like, without her, right? I see people going through these nasty divorces, and not like, I hope that's something that I never have to even talk about, right? But if I did, like, yeah, here, it's yours, right? Like, because I would not have been able to build these things without her. And I think people fail to see that. It's not a one-sided coin. Like, everybody has to be rowing in the same direction, right? Otherwise, you'll end up going in circles.
Yeah, I want to expand on that. Isn't that a great feeling? When they tell you that at that event? I can listen to Tony Robbins and all these other guys speak, and they can inspire me, and I can get fired up. But when the wife says it, that's deep, because that follows you every day.
Yeah.
Right? You know, it follows you. You're driving to the gym. You're like, "Oh, fuck this. I'm going to have the best day ever, man." This is like, she's in now. She's with me. We're on the same page. You know, she's fired me up. She's got me motivated.
Well,
I mean,
we take that even one step further. In our kitchen, we have a scoreboard. Like, we have some family goals, right? Like, like my family, they all want to put a pool in the backyard. I think it's one of the worst investments we could actually make, right? And I'm like, "No, I'm not gonna do it." And they're like, "Come on, like, what? Like, if this is our forever home, like, this is what we want." So we came together as a family.
Yeah.
We set some goals. Okay, when we are helping this many agents succeed, right? I'm not worried, because I know what that will produce in income and stuff like that. And I'm like, whatever you want, I'm not going to nickel and dime you. Like, you go create. She wants a she shed. She wants this. She wants, like, go do it, right? But that way, if I have to take a call on a Saturday or an evening, like, I have the support there. "Babe, I need you to put the kids down," right? Like, not a problem, right? Like, so this is where, again, everybody, actions and goals have to align for everybody, not just one person, right? Otherwise, there's going to be tug of war. People's feelings are going to get hurt and everything else.
Absolutely. And coming from the house to go to work, whether you're working in the house or at an office, that's where it all starts, right? That's where that fire starts. That fire inside of you is what I mean, you know?
Yeah.
And if it's strong there, oh, dude, look out, world. It's going to be tough.
Right.
It's going to be tough to beat me. It's going to be real tough to beat me. So I want to get into kind of some of the stuff you're doing right now too. Like, we talked earlier, you're into working in Airbnbs. And you had a really cool strategy and like something, a part of Airbnbs you're explaining. And I want you to, let us know what that is?
Yeah. So prior to this, right, like me and my old business partner both had really just kind of moved up equity, right? We started with one house in Phoenix, Arizona. I mean, I think we bought it for 200 in 2011, selling for like 800 now,
Oh,
right? Like timing had a lot to do with that. We kept that house for a long time, and then we bought another house in Las Vegas, again, along the upswing. So now we have two houses that we're renting out. And we're making $500-600 a month because we have mortgages and stuff on these.
Yeah.
Right. So ended up selling both of those. And a business partner, actually one of my first coaching clients that I had phenomenal success with. I still give him shit because he had his best year ever over and over, and then was like, I think I'm going to stop coaching. I was like, what? You've had two of your best years that you've ever had. Like, explain to me this. But we're still great friends, right? We ended up investing together and stuff like this. We bought 24 doors in Cleveland, Ohio, free and clear. And it looked really great. But neither of us are from Cleveland. The turnover was astronomical. It just was not as sexy as it looked like on paper. So we ended up getting out of those. We did fine on them. And then we were like, okay, well, what do we do next? Right. And so this is what's moved us into the next chapter of our investing plan, our business plan, is we bought 20 acres outside of Fredericksburg, Texas. So Fredericksburg, Texas is the second largest production of wine in the country next to Napa Valley.
Wow.
And the largest percentage of per capita of millionaires in the country as well. Now, granted, there's only 12,000 people in Fredericksburg, but per capita, the largest amount of millionaires versus anywhere else in the country, more than Los Angeles, or because the populations there are so big, right? Yeah. And so we totally remodeled this unit. We cleared the entire 20 acres and stuff there. And I love the short-term rental aspect as long as you have the right team, right? Our cleaning crew is to die for, right? Like he comes over for dinner whenever we're out there, right? We have a landscaper that also has a contracting company and stuff like that. And so I can call them at any point in time and they will drop what they're doing because I send them a lot of business. So we have a main house, we have an apartment, we have a 1990 Airstream that we're in the process of remodeling right now. And then we are crushing it short term, like the return on investments, I can't make anywhere else. For about 3 months, the main house rents for $600 to $700 a night. And it's like 90% occupancy. Yeah. Like those 3 months alone pay for the entire year. And we have a 15-year note on it. Right. So our payment's higher than usual and it's just crushing it. And so now, we're looking at tiny homes and building out an entire community with I've been talking to some professional Frisbee golf players. They're like, oh, I can probably get some sponsors to put in Frisbee golf courses. I'm like, yes, we're looking at pickleball courts, right? We're looking at all of these things to kind of build out this community. And we're talking to this really cool company right now called Jupe, Jupe. And one of the guys, one of the founders was involved in the Cybertruck. So they've created this beautiful structure that it's 1 bedroom. There's no kitchen or anything like that. It's sleek. It's private, right? They're not all mashed together. We're talking about partnering. So I don't have to pay $40,000 to $60,000 for each of these. I'll get the land ready. I will put in some of these attractions. They'll supply that and we'll do a rev share together. Wow. Right? If we ever don't like each other, they can take their unit back, right? I still have my land. They're not going on the deed or anything like that. But again, now I don't have to outlay for 10 units, right? I would never keep $400,000 in my bank account to begin with, right? Because I want that money working for me. But now I don't have to even come up with that, right? I don't have to worry about financing. And so it's a real partnership. And so now we're looking at other destination areas because we've had such success here. Sure. So now we're like, well, where do we want to visit? right? Like I was looking at some places in like Yosemite, right? Like up there in California. Like we're looking in Bastrop, which is a little bit closer. There's a pine trees in Texas, which is not very common, right? So there's this one little section. And so, yeah, we're looking for places that people love to go to and that we can create these other communities on. So
Yeah.
that's a big portion of our investment strategy right now.
That's super cool. And I know a lot of people now are like, whoa, shiny object just went off, man. That sounds cool, right? So a little bit of nuts and bolts here. How
Yeah.
did you find the cleaning guy? I mean, this is like just vacant land, right? In a 12,000 person community. How did you find the cleaning person, the all your maintenance guys? Where'd you find those and how'd you do it?
Yeah. So I can't, I would assume there's probably groups like this everywhere, right? Social media has pros and cons, right? One of the pros is there's all of these subgroups within it. And so we found a Fredericksburg short-term rental group.
Wow.
And literally, because we've never been there, it's 4 hours away from us, right? Like we've never been there or anything else. I was starting to go through it. And so we literally just asked for referrals. Hey guys, we're new to the area. Who has a pool service? Oh, this guy's great, right? Like cleaning service. And so we would interview all of these people and find the ones that were the best fit for us. So,
Okay.
and this is what I teach people to do when they're building their businesses as well. Like, who's their clientele? Like, get their clientele involved and ask for referrals. Hell, maybe some of your clients have a business that you can use. Now you guys are reciprocating and adding value to each other because I believe we are directly compensated by how much value we add to others.
Yo, yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. Having a podcast, I can tell you that's very true.
Yeah.
Certain people I've had on this podcast, I'll introduce them to maybe another person that was also on the podcast, right?
Yeah.
They mix, they mesh, and all of a sudden deals are happening. All of a sudden we had an Airbnb, two guys connected, Airbnb wedding facility came
Yeah.
out of it. I mean, it's just so cool to see like the connections you can make when you're out there, talking to people. One more question about that facility or that thing you're building here.
Yeah.
How do you got this guy? He's bringing in these one bed properties, correct?
Uh-huh.
How do you work the deal with them? Like let's say I was going to do that. I have a property in the next town over, and I'm going to do one of those things. How would you work a deal like that with a vendor technically?
Yeah.
How'd that look?
So I think every scenario is different, right?
Mhm.
Their general model is instead of paying, $40,000 to $60,000 up front for the unit, there's a small franchise fee to help with them setting it up. But this also depends on what needs to be done to the land and stuff as well,
Mhm.
right? Like if we have to do some land, we'll negotiate to like if we have to put in roads or sewer. Like I can tell you, in order to do this, we already have a greenhouse. We're converting it into a restroom,
Oh, that's so
right?
cool.
So that way people, because one, I don't want people shitting all over my land, right? Like, so I need a place for them to go and do this, right? So every deal looks a little bit different.
Yeah.
There's a couple of companies that I've talked to on this. Some had franchise fees, some didn't. Some, I mean, what we've been talking about is almost like a 1/3 split, right? Where 1/3 goes to cover the cost. We take 1/3 and they take 1/3. If it
Yeah.
doesn't cost me 33% a month to kind of cover the overhead, well, then that's a bonus for us for running a good business and stuff there.
Yeah. Okay. That's super interesting because I know anybody that was like listening to that story is like,
Yeah.
okay, I want to do that, but what do I have to do or which direction should I start moving in?
Mhm.
Now you say, how important are relationships to you and how are you going and finding these people to work with? You're a guy, you're very outgoing. It's pretty easy to
Mhm.
talk to, right?
Sure.
But where are you finding these partners and these people to work with to do deals?
Yeah, so a lot of it comes from referrals, right? Like
Mhm.
digging in, like because I also do a lot with syndications. Like I can't go and buy an $8 million complex by myself. But if we got 20 of us or 50 of us, right? Like we can do things like that. So a lot of it comes from network. And my wife and I, like we purge our friends list yearly.
Yeah.
right? Like just because like we may have served each other at some point in our time, we might not moving forward. And that's okay. It's really okay to outgrow people, family, friends, etc., if they're not adding value. Now, value may not be monetarily. It could be spiritually, it could be laughter, it could be love, right? But somebody just can't be taking all of the time.
Sure.
And so like I'm constantly looking for talent in real estate and business and friendships, constantly looking like who would I like to bring my kids around? Like who's going to be a good role model for them and teach it? Again, money I've realized is really just kind of secondary. Like I had found when I stopped chasing money, it flowed in abundance, as
That is
weird
the
as
truth.
that sounds, right?
Yeah.
When that was all I thought that mattered, man, it eluded me. I would make a lot, I would lose even more. And you went through these ebbs and flows and
Yeah.
stuff like that. And yeah, now that I don't care as much, like literally, hey Larry, like look at this, like would you are does this interest you? And so I'll have to evaluate and see if it aligns with us.
Yeah.
But referrals, to answer your question, is it's all like based on other people that I know, like, and trust, so that I don't have to do it all from scratch.
Yeah. It makes it so much easier too when you have a team of people or just friends, really. Honestly,
Mhm.
all they are is, I mean,
Yeah.
it's just a group of friends we've all gravitated towards, right? Through different things. When you grow up as a kid, you grow up with the people that happen to live next door and that happen to go to your high school, go to
Yes.
college. You're friends with the guys that happen to go to your college, right? But as you grow and you start to build things, that you start to move more towards interests that you have, that they might also have as well, and then those become your acquaintances, your business people, the people you're working with.
Yeah. Yeah, and rightfully so. Like you want to take care of, like you want others to succeed. Well, I
Absolutely.
can't. I guess I can't speak for everybody else, right? I want.
Yeah.
I live my life in abundance, right? Like I think there's more than enough for everybody. I think that there's more than enough business out there for every realtor to do 20 deals, to do 50 deals, for everybody to do this, but it's not taught in our schools, which is a much longer topic, right?
That's
Like,
a conversation in itself.
yeah, like that just frustrates the hell out of me.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not the biggest advocate of our traditional schooling system, right?
Mhm.
Like, so this is where I'm trying to help my kids at 8 years old, right? Like I was just talking to my son. He's like, Dad, I want a cell phone. I was like, I'm not buying you one. You're 8 years old. You don't need a cell phone, right? And I was like, all right. But here's the thing. You make $50 a month and I'll get you a cell phone. How am I going to do that? That's where you got to start thinking, right?
Yeah.
And we came up with this plan. I was like, well, look, what if, do you think some of our friends in our neighborhood would pay you $2 a week to take their trash cans in and out? There's only 2 days that it comes. So you would have
Yeah.
2 days of work. He's like, I think so. Well, how many people on our street? And he's like, five. All right. So that's how much a week? Well, that's $10 a week. All right. And how many weeks are there? There's 4 weeks in a month, right? And
Yeah.
well, that's $40. I was like, all right, could you get one more client? Could you make six? Right. And so I want to teach them, like,
Mhm.
because it's not taught in schools and stuff there, on how to think outside of the box.
Yeah, it's not taught in schools. And also, I was listening to something about generational wealth today, and again 2 weeks ago, I think. And it basically said, like, in order to have true generational wealth, you don't just pass on the money. You pass on the
Right.
ideas, the thought processes, the things going on inside your brain and in your heart. You pass that on to the kids.
Yeah.
The money, like you just said, he's going to learn how to bring people's trash cans out, but
Yeah.
even more so, he's going to realize it's possible,
Yeah.
right? How many people don't think it's possible for them in general? In
Yeah.
any with just 40-year-old guys, how many of those guys don't think it's possible? Had they had a
Right.
father like you telling them at 10 years old, or however old your son is, that it is possible, and here's a strategy, it would shoot them
Mhm.
off in that trajectory, right?
Yeah.
That's
Same
huge.
thing, like after we went through Hurricane Harvey here, and my daughter, I mean, she was probably 12 at that time, maybe a little bit younger. but like everybody was just tossing everything outside of their house. And so she was going and looking for the things that were salvageable, like sterilizing them, doing this, like Bob jogging strollers and stuff that are $400 or $500
Yeah.
that she would get for free. Took some elbow grease and cleaned them up and sold them for $100.
Wow.
I'm like, that's
The Gary
cool.
V approach.
Yeah, right. Like, and our neighborhood has like a bulk trash type thing, right? And I mean, literally, like I see grown people doing this. I'm like, yeah, like you live in this neighborhood, like
Yeah.
you could do this all the time.
That's super smart. That's
No.
so cool to see that. Yeah, kids, man, your kids are going to take over. I'm going to be interviewing them when I'm 80.
Right.
They're the
Yeah.
next
I
big
hope so. I
thing.
just want them to do something that they love, right? Because
Yeah.
like when you love what you do, like it doesn't feel like work.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. I want to shift gears just a little bit. I'm
yeah.
a big guy, a big fitness guy. I like fitness, especially, I like the combination of fitness and business and the things that the connections that are made there. You're a big fitness guy, obviously.
Uh-huh.
How did you get into the fitness world and how do you connect that with your business?
Oh man. So, I mean, I've been doing fitness as long as I could remember,
Yeah.
right? Like I remember my dad lied about my age so I could play baseball earlier. And it wasn't until a couple of years later when my mom was registering me, they were like, "Oh, so he'll be in the 8 to 10-year-old category." And she's like, "No, he's 6." And they're like, "No, he's not. He's 8." And she's like, "I know how old my kid is, right?" Like, and so, like, as far as I can remember, like I was always involved in sports, and I think it kept me out of a lot of trouble and stuff in high
Yeah.
school. I went on to like wrestle at a very high level in high school and then on to college. And so just the sports and stuff, like I think it was part of like my mental conditioning, right? Of being able to push through when it hurts,
Yeah.
right? Like a lot of people, they get a little bit of resistance and like, I'm out. I'm constantly like my mantra is how do I become comfortable being uncomfortable every single
Yes.
day? I do breath work, right? Where I was just talking to Tim and Matt on their podcast,
Yeah.
right? Like I'm up to I think like 3 minutes and 36 seconds without breath. Like when you feel like you're going to die, like it pushes you,
Yeah.
right? Like and granted, I'm not going to, right? I can open my mouth at any point, but just doing that, right? So I mean, one, I'm not doing this like I'm doing this because like my goal is to live to be over 100. I don't want to be in a nursing home. Not that that's good or bad. That's not my vision. I want to be active. I want to be out there. And so I know that depends on what I put my body and how I take care of my body.
Yeah.
And I've been rough on my body, right? And I'm feeling it now. Like I have a torn meniscus right now.
Oh,
I'm still working out every single day, like just
yeah.
a little bit different. I'm just tweaking it, right? Type thing. So again, I think it's been programmed in me, and it's taught me so many valuable lessons. And again, mainly to push through that pain, like when it burns, right? Like that's where you receive the most growth and stuff there. And then when you're surrounded by other athletes and stuff like that, again, it's creating that peer group, right? It's creating that accountability group. I don't like to work out at 5 a.m., but I do it because that's like we have a group text, right? Like, oh, like we're doing this today. Oh, it's a partner workout today, or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, that's that teamwork atmosphere that really is
uh-huh.
pretty cool. And what I found too is in all, not all, a lot of the more successful people out there, they have either refound fitness or
Hmm.
they never quit, right?
Sure.
It was just constantly there in their lives, or some of these guys have refound their passion for like CrossFit or
Sure.
jujitsu or something
Yeah.
along those lines. It's just been a big part of their lives now, and it goes so well because it's basically just go out there and do hard shit, right?
Yeah.
Do hard shit, do the things that are really hard, and you'll get the biggest results, the best results from those things.
Yeah.
If it was easy, everybody would do it, but it's not, and that's the best part about it, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And so I still do a lot of CrossFit.
Mhm.
I've taken not a lot, maybe 1 or 2 days a week now. And I've transitioned that more into a lot of yoga.
Mm.
And again, just because that traditionally wasn't where I pushed myself. Right. But
Yeah.
if you hold a pose for 4 minutes, like your muscles are shaking, right? I love inversions,
Yeah.
right? Like I just learned how to walk on my hands and do handstands 3 or 4 years ago, right? So it's like figuring out these new skills and stuff like
Yeah.
that. Now, like, man, I mean, if you asked most adults to do a handstand, right? Like they're going to break their neck, right?
Absolutely.
And so it's again kind of finding that, and it's very new to me. And then there's also a peaceful side of things. It's almost like my meditation time as well, without people jabbering and everything else.
Well, it's interesting. You're moving into yoga. It's just like you've been doing your whole career, right? Your whole business life,
Yeah.
transitioning to something else, transitioning to something else. All right, we got this. Let's transition to this here.
Yeah.
So you've done it in fitness too. So
Yeah.
that's very interesting, and that's a good key takeaway if you're listening to this. Keep moving, keep progressing, keep
Oh, yeah.
growing. Transitioning doesn't have to be scary. Just do it, right?
Yeah.
Just jump into it and go after it.
But so many people like want to perfect things, right? Oh, when I do this, Larry, then I'm going to do this. And that never comes.
Yeah.
So they never get to that.
Hmm.
Right. And so lots of times you have to try something to figure out, like, is this the path that I really want? It's okay to change.
Yeah.
But if you never try it, you never quite figure it out. And that's where people stay in that comfort zone. And yeah, like, oh, I'm good. Oh, that's worse than fuck to me. Like, you tell me
Yeah.
that you're good, like that's worse than cursing at me, right? Like,
Yeah.
no, because that limits you from going, oh, my bills are paid. Right. Like, well, is that what you want?
Yeah.
Right. What's your vision look like? Because it's possible. Like maybe it starts with a side hustle. Maybe it starts with picking up free things and selling them. But now you take that and you put it into some cryptocurrency or something that
Yeah.
could change
Especially
your
now.
life. Maybe you lose it. Like who knows? But like you never know unless you test that out.
Absolutely. And that gives you the fire in your life too, right?
Yeah.
Like that keeps you going like that. And it doesn't, I don't like the idea of the shiny object always jumping from business to business, but finding something else and moving towards that, there's nothing wrong with that as well.
Yeah.
It gives you a fire, it keeps you alive.
Yeah, absolutely. It's that constant growth,
Yeah.
right? Like constantly reading, learning new things. Like we're only one person, right? And so we can only learn so much. I was only raised playing this amount of sports during a year.
Yeah.
Maybe I missed my genius, right? Like I think every kid has a genius, like Justin Bieber picking up drumsticks or spoons and being like,
Yeah.
nobody knew he
Turns
just,
out he's good.
yeah. Oh, look, mom, these make sounds, right? Like
Yeah.
how many people never figure out what their genius is?
Absolutely. You got to give it a shot or you'll never. And I always have that deathbed talk. I never want to be on my deathbed and being like, man, I know I could have done this. If I
Yeah.
would have just tried,
Yeah.
if I would have just gave it a shot, I would have been able to do it. That is the worst possible scenario for me. And I'm sure a lot of guys like you, high achievers, that'd be the worst thing, to be laying on my deathbed thinking, man, I regret so many different things. Like I just don't want
Yeah.
to do that.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
totally agree. And on that, right? Like that's also important to love what you do, because I don't think we're ever going to say, oh, I wish I would have sold another home. I wish I would have made 1,000. Like none of that shit's going to matter at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Right. It's going to be those memories like, oh man, remember when PJ and I went white water rafting after our podcast, right? Like, yo, that was so cool,
That
right?
was
Like
insane.
these are the flashbacks that we're going to have for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. That's money's going to come and it's going to go, but you're absolutely right. Those things, and you still remember them now. Like you can remember all those things that happened when you were a kid growing up wrestling. You remember some of those cool things that happened at certain tournaments or certain events, but you don't remember, I don't know, how much you spent on how much it cost to get to the ride to the event, right? Nobody remembers that stuff. You only remember the cool thing that happened at this one or this thing over here.
Beautiful.
But
yep.
All right, Larry, how can people get hold of you?
So on social media, like is all the same, at Larry MF White, LARRY, M as in Mary, F as in Frank, White like the color. It doesn't stand for Mary Frances. It was my alter ego that I created, like to get things done. So welcome to connect with me on all social media platforms. If you want to put my contact information, I'm always I'll send you my calendar link if you want to put it on there. If somebody wants to put some time on my calendar, like how do we add value together? Right? Like I'm not looking for more clients. I'm not looking for this. Like if we're going to do something together, how do we add value to each other? So I'll send you over my calendar link if you want to put it in the description and stuff for everybody.
Definitely.
And people can literally drop time on my calendar and we can figure out how we can do some more business together.
That's very cool. And I want to make it a point to thank Matt Kavanaugh and Tim Winfrey Jr. For connecting us. Those guys are super cool. And they connected us and got us together. We were both on their podcast.
Yeah.
Now we're here talking together. They are releasing their podcast, their big show today, October 17th. So make sure you check that out. Those guys are really cool. They have a lot of cool stuff to talk about, and they're just all around nice dudes. So
yeah, they are great people. I'm super thrilled they connected us.
Yeah.
And man, if we can do more together, man, I've enjoyed this. If there's ways that we can add more value to each other, if you're ever looking for other people, like let me know. I talk to a lot of cool people across multiple different industries and stuff like that. So if we can ever do more, man, I'm thrilled to.
That's awesome. Larry, you're a cool guy, man. I think a lot of people are going to want to connect with you. Here though, Larry, I have a big question to ask you to finish this podcast. This is a big one, so be prepared.
Okay.
Ready yourself. You might need to grab some caffeine or something.
Okay.
All right. Here's the big question. We are LandLife. I buy and sell dirt all over the country.
Yeah.
If you could buy land anywhere in the world, where would it be and why?
Oh, good question there. If I was to buy land anywhere in the world, right? So I already told you, like I'm starting to do this, right? Wherever I want, like I'm starting to target, I want to have like these communes and stuff all across the world. But to answer your question specifically, and this just goes on to like all kinds of different conspiracy theories, Antarctica, because I'm not allowed to. Right. Like, so it's like when somebody tells you you can't, like, well, why not? Right. Like, why does the entire world have a treaty that we can't be down there? What is down there? Like, I want to know about this. So Antarctica would be where I would want to own some land. And why? Because they're telling me that I can't right now. And so I'm curious what the heck's down there. Now, I might be able to do that and be like, yo, this sucks because I don't like the cold weather, right? But it's just because I've been told that I can't, and I can't even go down there and visit at this point in time. And I'm like, but why? Because I think there's a lot of history that's buried and frozen in the earth and stuff down there. Like same thing here, right? Like we dug down 50 feet. Like we could probably find some cool shit from mud floods and things like that, that pyramids and things like that get buried over. So
that is the coolest answer. So nobody has said Antarctica. Nobody. It's always, an island or Florida, Texas, Montana gets brought up a lot.
Okay.
But no one has ever said Antarctica. So now you got me thinking, like, why can't we buy land? I didn't even know that.
Yeah, there's a world treaty. Like we can't even go visit Antarctica.
Really?
And this is the only place the entire world has said, yeah, travel, go throughout borders, but not Antarctica.
Except there.
Yeah. Why? Now I'm curious.
Yeah, there's something up there. I don't like that either. That's where all the world leaders go. All of a sudden you see all these planes going there. You're like, whoa, where's everybody going?
Right.
There's a reason for that. Larry, thank you so much, man. I really appreciate it.
Yes, brother. It was great. I appreciate your time and I'll talk to you soon, man.
All right, guys. Thanks. And guys, till next time, I'll see you on LandLife.